Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions.
Hi, I'm Eric Grant with Sailrite. In today's tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make an extension panel between the Dodger and the Bimini. And this is available in a kit form made from Sattler fabric, and it's available in all kinds of colors at the Sailrite website. So if you have a Dodger, if you have a Bimini, you can add this to make the crew a lot more comfortable in the sun. It almost makes an additional room down there in the cockpit. So let's get started and show you how to make your extension panel, which zips onto the Dodger with this flange and zips under the tail of the Bimini here as well.
The extension panel kit has a maximum size of 104 inches from starboard to port and 54 inches fore and aft. Lens zip number 10 zippers are included in the kit, a zipper that attaches to the Bimini and also a zipper that attaches to the Dodger and is protected by a flange. Let's get started and build our extension panel between the Dodger and the Bimini. The first step is patterning on top of the Dodger and the Bimini.
So this is our Dodger, and what we're going to do is we're going to make an extension panel between the Dodger and the Bimini. And this space isn't very big, but it will provide protection for the crew. Typically they're not sailing when this is put on, but you probably could for this since our Traveler is in the front. So this is the end of our stitch for this Dodger, and I think that's where I want the extension panel to end. So I'm going to just mark it with my chalk right there at the end so I have a reference for that. And we will have it end basically right here at this point here. Now you could have it end anywhere you want. If you wanted to go further, you could, but this is a good spot for our reference. For this one, we're going to have the zipper go on the underside, so I'm just going to basically mark it right here and on the underside, right about that location, so that I know I can see it from the inside. And we'll do the same thing on the starboard side there. Okay, we've got some the pattern material, and we're going to put it on top of the Dodger to pattern that seam line. And we just need to make sure that we have enough to cover where we want that zipper to stop, or the zipper to stop right there. So I'm going to use some spring clamps. Make sure it's nice and flat. That should be good enough right there. Might put a clamp in the middle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, holding it flat to this, and I'll do that as I mark it, is I'm going to mark with my Sharpie marker right there at the end, and this is the port side, so I'll probably write port out, pout, and we're going to do right on top of the stitches, I'm going to make dashes, because it's a lot easier to make dashes than it is straight line. And make sure you push the fabric in like this as you're doing it, so that it's flat along the forward edge, or I should say aft edge of the Dodger. Okay, we're going to do this all the way to the other side, and we'll mark the starboard side here as well, just like we did here. So what I need to do now is I need to get a measurement from here to where we're going to have it go here, and then we have to do it diagonally to over there, diagonally over here, and on that side. So that's why I made a crude drawing like that. And what I'm going to do so I can clip it to this is I'm going to cut it all the way to that zipper right here, and then just go like this so I can clip my tape measure to that. So get rid of that, and then I'm going to turn around so you can see what I'm doing here. I've got a flexible tape measure, and remember, it's got to go back like this. So I'm going to put it right on that dash line there, and we're going to clip it to that with the grip clip. And we really want it to stay there because it keeps wanting to push forward. See how it's away from that stitch? So I need to put something a little bit heavy on that. Just to keep it weighted, I'm going to put these on here so that it stays on that stitch, and we'll check it before we do our final measurement. And then I'm going to come straight across to where we're going underneath here, and there's where it is on the outside. On the inside it's that same spot. So I'm going to measure to this edge right here. So right to the seam at that locale, right above that mark, and I get, what do I get? 32.5, but I want to make sure this is flat. See, it's not. So I'm going to put my hand here. If I had a second helper, it'd help with this. If I just put my hand here, I think I can do it. I get 33.25 if I go to this seam right here. So 33.25, and this is the starboard side, so S and P. So 33.
Port side.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the port side. I got that wrong. Port side, and this is the starboard side. So I got 33.25 there. And while we're hooked up here, I'm going to do the diagonal. So I'm going to flip this a little bit so that I can get a diagonal measurement and clip it right at that juncture. And then go to here. And we want to go over the frame, and I need to make sure that stays down. If I had a second helper, that would help a ton. And this is where that line is that I struck over here, and I'm just measuring in that same spot. You probably can't see it. Seth, do you mind holding that right there? I had somebody, the cameraman, hold that down flat, and I made sure this was taut. So it's not taut right now, and what I got was 81 inches. So I'm going to write that diagonal down too. Then I'm going to measure from here to here like we did over there, and then I'm going to measure from here to that edge over there. I'll probably show that one since you can see exactly where we're measuring to, but that's what we need to do. So now I have a second helper. I just want to show you how taut we hold this. So Seth's on the stitch line, and we want to go taut to this mark that we have here at the seam, and I get 84.5. So your tape measure, I want to make sure I'm out of the way here. Your tape measure should be about that taut when you're doing it, and it should go over the top of the Dodger because that's what our fabric is actually going to go over. It will go underneath here, but that's going to be at that juncture there. So now, one of the things that I need to discuss is that you don't expect this measurement to be the same on the starboard and port side. It won't be, and don't expect your diagonals to be the same. It's very rare that they ever would be. If they were, I'd be shocked. So we're off a couple inches on each one of these measurements because we had 31 over there and we had 84.5 over here, while we had 81 over here and 33.25 over here. Okay, so what I've got is I've got a piece of pattern material on the Bimini here, and I had to tape a piece to it with packing tape here to extend the length. And I want it to be smooth along this forward edge, so I'm using again the pony clamps to kind of clamp it there to keep the wind from knocking it out of position. So our white marker, is very close to the end, is actually right here. I can see it through there, so I'm going to mark it here. I'm going to mark this area here, right where this fold is, and I'm probably going to do it with dashes so that I can be a little bit more straight. Might as well do this while it's on the boat, so we have a precise shape. We just want to make sure that this stays consistent as we mark. So we're going to do this all the way to the other end, and make sure that you put a mark here where we're going to stop. Okay, and so we're going to mark this Bimini, and this is the pout side, port out, and we'll mark starboard over there. All right, that's all there is to it. Now we need to take down the Bimini and the Dodger and take it inside and sew zippers on.
Before we sew zippers on the Dodger and the Bimini, let's create a protective zipper flange for the Dodger top.
This is our pattern for our Dodger, and this is the starboard side. This is the aft of the pattern. This is the front, or towards the bow. So we're going to cut right on these dash marks all the way down its length. In this chapter, we're going to create the flange for the zipper that goes on the Dodger. And we have a lot of scrap fabric around in the right color, and so we used scrap fabric. Afterwards, we thought, hey, this isn't helping the customer. We need to show what to do with the fabric that comes in the kit, which is 60-inch wide Sattler fabric, and I believe there's 3 yards in it. So we've got a different color Sattler fabric here on the table. In fact, it's some scrap fabric that we're using for a different project. And this is my panel that I patterned on the Dodger. To get the maximum fore and aft measurement, you need to place this 2 inches from this bottom edge. So this is the 3-yard running, or this is the running length of the fabric. And the center will typically be the fattest part. So what I do is I just measure and I make sure I have at least 2 inches, and I try to keep it very close to 2 inches in the center part. Now if you measure on the sides, you can see there's shape to this. So that means we're using up at least 4 inches of fabric. That's why we say the maximum size is 54 inches, because we expect you to use anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of fabric. Make sure you place this pattern so you can get at least 1.5 inches on the port side and the starboard side. So I have some of my Sattler fabric, and I need to make sure that I have 2 inches on the aft edge of this. Okay, so we've laid this on here, and we want to have some extra fabric here because the flange is actually going to go past the end of the zipper, probably by 1 inch. Okay, so that should give me plenty of fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and put sandbags on this. And we have a video on showing how to make these. I've been using these for years and years, and they've not leaked at all. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our chalk, we're going to mark the end of the zipper right by that mark, and we're going to just mark along this side, or use a hot knife directly on it, which is what I'm going to do. So remember, we want to go long, so I'm going to cut basically following the same plane as those dash marks. And if you have the Sailrite edge hot knife with the precision cutting foot and blade, you can actually just cut right next to your pattern material without marking it. Works beautifully. Now that's the end of my zipper there, and I want to go past that because remember, we want this flange to be bigger by at least 1 inch. So right there should do it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to mark this side because this is the side we're using, and let's put pout on it, and we'll mark this side over here at the starboard, which I already did, and we'll put sout over here. So now I'm going to use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler, and I'm going to mark this at 2 inches following that edge, so we have this line that's parallel to this. If you don't have this, you could use another tool as well, but this really works great, as you can see. So this edge follows the edge of the canvas, and this line means it's perfectly parallel to that, and we just need a 2-inch strip. Okay, before I cut this off, because I'm going to cut this with a hot knife, I'm going to mark for my hem along this edge, but to do that I need to turn it upside down. There's no right side or wrong side to this Sattler fabric, but there is since we marked it. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch hem, and I'm going to use this here, and I'm going to put it in 1 inch so we can just fold to this line. So we're just going to strike it on the back side to 1 inch, all the way down. We've flipped it back over, and now we're just cutting on that line that's 2 inches from the other line with a hot knife. From that mark, I'm going to mark over 1 1/4 inches. We have extra fabric, but I think 1 1/4 will be safer to cover the zipper completely. And what I want to do, this edge is the hem, because remember we have that line 1 inch from that, which puts it right in the middle. This edge is the bound edge, we'll have binding, and I want to make this a smooth transition into this corner so that I don't have to make a 90-degree turn. So we'll do that on the starboard side and the port side, 1 1/4 inches from that zipper stop position. Okay, now that the two edges are cut like this, we're going to flip it over to the back side, and we're going to put double-sided tape all along this edge, really close to this edge. I have to start over here because I'm used to it. So we want to put this double-sided tape on, and then we want to press it down firmly with some a hard object like the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler, which is what it was designed for as well. And this bonds the acrylic glue to the acrylic fabric. Not many things stick to acrylic, so that's why we have to do this. I'm going to peel back the transfer paper, but only to about here. And why is that? Because we're going to bind this edge, and I want this to be folded before we get to the binder, just on the ends. So I'm going to fold that to the line, approximately that far, and crease it well. And I'll do the same thing on the other end. I have my 1 inch bias binding put in the 1 inch swing away binder by Sailrite, and I'm going to feed this assembly in so that the hem is down, so that the top side is what I'm seeing here, because usually the top side stitch looks better. So we're going to, I've already started sewing a little bit. Well actually I didn't. I'm going to start sewing. There we go. And I'm going to feed this in the binder so that we follow that curve, and I'll do a little bit of reversing here, just one stitch in reverse, but several times. Okay, and then I want to push this into the binder at this curve, so I'm going to do this. Come on, go in there. There we go. So now we just keep it in there and sew all the way down this length, making sure that it's at the exiting point of the binder shoved in all the way. And you just want to push that in to the exiting point of the binder. Even if there's a little wrinkle here, that's fine. I'm going to follow that gentle curve. Sometimes I'll even use a tool like this to kind of push it in there. And then when we get to the end, I'm going to do one stitch in reverse several times. Okay. Okay, I cut that end off with scissors, but I want to go over the end of the binding because this is going to be left raw with a hot knife here. Don't want to burn it too much, even though I did. You just want to seal it in, and I'm going to do the same thing on the port side. So now we're going to peel off the rest of the transfer paper, and we're going to complete this hem and press it down firmly with the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler after we're done. We do this all the way down the length. Our next step is to put the basting tape on very close to the fold, but not over the edge. So see how I'm just a smidge back from that edge. Okay, we're going to do this all the way down the length, and we're going to secure it down well, again with this.
Now that our protective flange is done, we're going to sew the zipper and the flange to the Dodger top.
This is a single pole Linzip number 10 molded tooth zipper, and it's got a locking slider. So I'm going to separate the two halves. The zipper will be longer than your assembly. We'll cut it to size. You just don't ever want to cut the starter pin or the starter box. We're going to put the starter pin on the Dodger. So we're going to set this one aside. So we're going to put this on the port side. Doesn't really matter. It could be on the starboard side too. But since the pin's going to go on the top, and remember this is our starting position, we're going to put double-sided tape on that side of it so we can baste it in place. So I'm going to put this very close to the raw edge, like that, all the way down its length, even though it's too long. So this is the underside, and it has a slider on it, so I'm going to move this out of the way to start with. We're going to put it on right here where this flange is, and you can feel it through the top here. You obviously want to put it on the top side. So I'm going to feel for the flange and just put some little dash lines indicating where the flange is all the way down its length. That way I can make sure that it's on accurately. We're going to peel off the transfer paper. I'm going to fold this back because it's over the edge a little bit, about 2 foot out. Remember, we want the starter post or the starter pin to be on the top, not the starter box. We're going to start it right at the end, and then we're just going to walk it down, matching it up to those marks that we made. So the zipper's basically directly on top of the zipper that's on the underside for the Dodger's pocket. Now don't stretch this zipper when you put it on because the zippers can be stretched. Just want to put it on with little stretch as possible. Okay, so here's where our zipper stops. You can see that mark right there. I'm going to cut it about 2 teeth past that, and I'm going to put a stop right where that is. So, and then I should melt that with a hot knife. Just do it so you don't burn your top, obviously. Okay, now we're going to take one of these snap caps. Well, we'll do that after we're done sewing, but we're going to install that right here, right across from that mark. Okay, make sure you press it down well so it doesn't come unbasted. Now we're going to take our flange, which protects the zipper from the sun, and we're going to peel off the double-sided tape to about 2 foot. Now remember, I transferred this mark on this side over to this side so I could see where it's supposed to be. That's the end of our zipper, and we want the zipper to basically be hidden. So I'm going to make it so that it's just right behind that fold like this, and baste it down the entire length. And that creates a beautiful protector for our zipper. I do recommend that you press it down hard with something like the Sailrite Canvas patterning ruler after you're done, because we don't want this to come apart. So I'm going to put this down so the left side of the inside foot is up against this edge, needles in center position, and we are doing 6mm stitch length, and we're going to do some reversing here just over top of that binding. And then we're going to sew down this edge. When we get to the slider, we'll need to move it. Make sure that nothing comes unbasted as you go. So since the Dodger is pretty heavy, I need to make sure that I'm making sure that nothing is getting caught as I sew. So I'm coming up to the slider. I'm going to make sure my needle is buried by rolling the balance wheel, and then I'm going to go ahead and push this slider past. I might have to lift my foot to get past that spot. There we go. And then don't forget to lower your foot and continue to sew.
Now we'll sew the second zipper to the Bimini's tail.
Now I've got my Bimini, and this is obviously the forward edge of it. This is the hang down tail. It's upside down, and here's where we marked it. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer that mark just a little bit closer to this flange here. There's where we marked it on the outside. Oops, looks like that mark's a little bit different from the outside. Looks like it actually goes here if I watch that. And we measured from, where did we measure from? We measured from out here, didn't we, Seth? So that mark actually goes right here. Okay, so I've got my zipper, and I'm going to separate the two halves. This is going to be longer than it needs to be. And we're going to put the starter post on the Dodger. Okay, so we're going to start it here, which means double-sided tape goes on this side just like we did before. We're going to set this side with the starter box aside. We'll peel off the transfer paper for about 2 foot. This will go right into, in other words, pull the pocket forward, pull the tail forward. We want it right at that spot where we marked, and we want to push that into that first stitch. So right in there, as close to that as possible, all the way down its length. If you have to have somebody help pull, then pull a little bit, because I'm a little bit off there. So just like that. All right, you get the idea. Okay, here's where we want it to stop, and again we're going to go 2 teeth over, and then I'm going to lift this up a little bit and cut it, and then I'm going to treat it with a hot knife, and we will put a stop on it after we're done sewing it. So we're going to put this in the machine, and we are going to sew. I'm going to put a roping zipper foot left on because this is going to ride on this bump and it's pretty heavy, so let me do that first. Okay, I'm sorry, what I put on is a roping zipper foot right. I didn't put the left on. So I have a toe here and I have a foot here and no foot here. So now I don't have to worry about that big bump. And I'll just run this toe up against the teeth. I'm going to put my needle to the right to get closer to the teeth. And we're going to carefully sew this, doing some reversing at the beginning. And we're going to make sure it stays basted down. You can pretty much tell where it's supposed to go as you spread this apart. All right, we're going to sew all the way to the other end, and we'll do some reversing when we reach that. So here is our, I believe they call it a snap cap. It has a big opening here, and then 2 small openings for the flange. And I like to put it 1 or 2 teeth. I'm going to put it right where the stop is, basically. So I'm just going to go 1 tooth over for this, and you just press it on, and it'll make 1 snap. It's not on all the way. It has to go all the way to the end, and it'll make 2 snaps. Now it's on all the way, and that creates a beautiful stop.
With the measurements we took and the patterns we made, it's time to create the extension panel.
So this is the Bimini pattern, and we're just going to cut it out in the same way that we did with the Dodger, right at those dash marks all the way down its length. So what we have to do is we have to find the center. The best way to do that is to fold it in half and make sure that your zipper ends, this one right here and this one, are butted up to each other. And then take a marker and mark the center right there. Okay, we'll mark it on both sides. And we need to do the same thing with this one. Okay, we've made sure that we have enough fabric on both port and starboard sides. Then I'm going to strike a line in the middle here all the way across our fabric. I'll do it up there too. Okay, so we're here at the table and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 basically tape measures or straight edges or flexible rulers. And that's all you need. Tape measures will work as well. I didn't use any. So we have the diagonals laid out. We have this diagonal. We skewed the panels. This center mark is not as important anymore. We skewed the panels till our measurements were almost exactly right. Now, if they're off by a ½ inch or so, that's not a big deal. Remember, we're going over bows that have bumps and such like that. So this panel's not supposed to be super glove tight. It's just supposed to help protect you from the sun. So now that we have everything the way we measured it, we can mark it. So don't move the patterns. If you have to, put some weighted sandbags on it. And we're going to mark here. Now we're going to add some for hems and so forth. But this is our desired finish size. And mark where the zippers go. So we're going to move this tape measure and we're going to mark right where that zipper goes. We're also going to put S-O-U-T, because this is the outside for starboard. And we're going to do that to all these panels, being careful not to move them. Okay, so now we also need to mark the legs. So I'm going to put this right on that zipper here, and we're going to just mark straight across the straight edge. Like that. We'll be adding some seam allowance. And then we're going to do the same thing on the starboard side, and we're going to mark against this panel as well.
Now that we know the desired finish size, we can add for hem allowance and sew hems in.
Okay, let's go back to our bimini. This is our bimini, and this is our tail. Remember, we measured from here. So we just added a zipper here, but we measured from that seam. So if you measure from that seam, I'm on 1 inch here. You can see I get 3/4 inch to the middle of the teeth. So we have to subtract 3/4 inch from our panel for this zipper. Now let's go to the Dodger. So on the Dodger, we measured basically from this stitch. The stitch is very close to that. So if I lift this up and I measure from that stitch, and I'm going to put it on 2 inch this time, I get about, well, my stitch is right about there. So I get about a ½ inch reduction. You can see from the middle of the teeth to where that stitch is. So why did I show you the zippers? It's going to be the same for you. You don't have to measure your zippers. So if you add the ½ inch on the Dodger, I think it was the Dodger, yeah. ½ inch on the Dodger, and the 3/4 inch on the Bimini, that's 1 1/4 inches. Now we're going to add for a hem for the zippers, which is going to take up 3/4 inch. We have 2 zippers, 3/4 times 2 is 1 1/2 inches. So that means we have a difference of 1/4 inch. So we need to add 1/4 inch on the side for the Dodger, where it had the flange. So we're only going to add 1/4 inch on the Dodger side. On the Bimini side, we're not going to add any. Now for the sides, this is going to be the finished size, but I'm going to add 2 inches on both the port and starboard side for a double 1 inch hem. So when we're done, it'll be reinforced nicely. We're not going to reinforce this with anything, we're just going to create hems. So I put my clear acrylic ruler on the 2 inch mark, and I'm going to strike a line that's parallel to that one all the way through on the port side and also the starboard side. This is the port side. There we go. So I'm going to add the 1/4 inch by just putting this on the 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to move it as I get shape. So once it goes off, like right here, I'm going to move it back to the line, and I'm going to strike a line everywhere that it's on top of the line. Great way to add a 1/4 inch or a ½ inch or whatever you need to add. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to cut our panel out with a Sailrite edge hot knife with the precision cutting foot and blade. All the way around the perimeter, ignoring the inner line. Okay, this is the pout and sout, so we need to flip it because this is the outside to the underside. And we're going to do the 2 short edges first, not the long edges where the zippers go. So I'm going to mark a line that's 2 inches from this edge, and this time I'm using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler, and we're going to fold to that line to create a 1 inch hem, but this will be a double hem when we're done. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side as well. Then we're going to put double-sided tape on this so that we can baste it, pre-baste it in place. And we're going to fold to that line. Okay, so let me get on this side of the table and move that canvas that's under my feet. fold to the line, like I said. Now we'll have a dog ear here. We'll trim that away after we're done with this double hem. We're going to put double-sided tape on top of that hem, close to the folded edge, yet again, and we're going to fold it again. Now I don't have a mark this time, but it actually creases pretty well right where this fold is. So when I take this off, you'll see that it'll crease right where we want it to. And we will make sure it's adhered down well. We're going to do the same thing on the other end, short end. So with our dog ear, which has become increasingly large, we're going to chop it off with scissors, or you could just use this the hot knife. If you use scissors, touch it up with a hot knife. There we go. I'm going to move my needle to the right, and I'm going to get this stitch really close to that fold there. I'm using the right side of my center foot as a guide here. And I'm just going to sew down this leg. We're going to put 2 stitches on this. And then I'm going to reverse here at the end. Okay, the second stitch, I'm going to use the magnetic. I moved the needle to the left and I put the magnetic guide on right where I wanted to stitch. I wanted to stitch really close to that raw side, and the magnetic guide is probably would have been helpful for my first stitch as well. Do some reversing, and now I can just run it up against that guide as I sew.
In this chapter, we're going to create a hem on the fore and aft edges and install zippers.
So the hem is facing up, as you can see, and I'm using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler, and I'm marking 1.5 inches from this edge. This is the edge for the Bimini, and we're going to do the same thing over here for the Dodger with the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler. We're applying the 3/8 inch basting tape or canvas along the cut edge, and we'll do this to both sides. And then after that's on, I'm just going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to peel this back, and we're going to fold it to that line, which should give us 3/4 inch hem. And we're going to do the same thing over there. I went back and got the Bimini just so I could tell what side the starter pin was on, and it's on the port side, which is over here. So I flipped this over. This means it's going to have the pin, so I'm going to just write pin over here on this. And then we're going to get the Dodger, and we're going to determine if the starter box goes on this side or that side as well. This is the zipper, the other half of the zipper, and this has a starter box on it. We labeled this side pin, which has the starter pin on it, so the box has to go over here. So we're going to put double-sided tape on this side all the way down. Okay, we don't want the slider on like this so that the puller is facing down. So the easy way to fix that, and it's a good thing I brought the Dodger over because I was going to zip it on and cut it to size. So that's easy to fix. Just cut off the stop at the end. Obviously we're going to have to cut the zipper even shorter. Take the slider, unslide it, unzip it, and then turn it over like that and zip it back on again. And now the slider puller is on the other side like that, and this will go down over here, but when we zip it, it'll be up, so we'll be able to zip it easily to the Dodger. And let's zip it up so we can cut it to the exact length that we need it. I'm going to go ahead and pull the slider through and then just set it aside. Well, I can't because I put a stop there, so I can't do that. So, but that's where we need to cut it. So we know that this is going to be the exact same length. So right there looks like. Yep. Now let's take the side off. If you've done it right, this should be equal to the same length as the zipper. So we're going to baste it on so that the flange is right up against that raw edge. The raw edge meaning there. This is the folded edge. And if you turn it over, it should conceal the teeth nicely like that. So we're going to go all the way to the end, and hopefully it's going to be the same length. We'll find out in a minute. Okay, it is the same length, but if it weren't, I could actually pull, or I could shrink up the zipper slightly. but for us, we don't need to, so we're good. So I'm going to sew the zipper in place. We're going to put one of those snap caps on the end as a stop later on. And we're going to do some reversing here. And my needle's in the right position, and I'm just going to use that outside presser foot as my guide and run it up against the teeth, making sure that everything stays basted. So now we have the Bimini back on the table, and its zipper sewn into the tail here, and that's the starter pin. Now if this zipper slider were left the way it is here, it means I'd have to slide it with the top, with the puller on top of the assembly. And I don't want that. So this one too has to be reversed. So we're going to take it all the way off by cutting off the end and flipping it just like we did before. Got to cut that off. So we're going to zip this one on now that the slider's on correctly. And you can see the slider, I can gain access to the slider easily now from underneath the extension panel. We're going to zip this one on, we're going to cut it to size, and then we're going to put it on this side, just like we did the other side. We're not going to show that. So you can see that we're 4 teeth too long here. So what you want to do this, as I talked about, you can shrink it or stretch it a little bit. Zippers are pliable. So go about halfway, and then compress the zipper slightly as you're basting. So you're almost, in a way, you're not introducing wrinkles, you're just basting it on with slight compression. And that should result in a shortened zipper. And obviously you could do the opposite if you were too short. We're too long in this situation, so we're shrinking it up slightly. So let's see what happens at the end. Okay, let's see if we are right. If we're not, we'll just do it again. Yes, look at that. We're almost perfect. And I don't even think I'll trim that. So now I'm just going to apply pressure everywhere, making sure that it's basted down well, and we're going to sew this on in the same manner.
Our extension panel is done. It's now time to install it on the Dodger and the Bimini.
Okay, so now we're ready to install the extension panel. You can see that our zipper is protected from the sun with this flap, and we have the starter pin here. So all I need to do is just run it into the thing and start zipping it up here along the Dodger all the way to the end. And we still have it nice and protected. Even if it were to flap open, you'd only see half the zipper, but that's good there. And then we have a starter box and the slider here, and it goes underneath the tail here, and zip it up all the way across. Nice. Fairly tight. I don't expect it to usually be this tight, but this isn't very nice. It's kind of like having another room in your boat. Sweet.
You can order the extension panel kit at the Sailrite website, and you can pick the color that you would like. It's a fairly easy kit to make. In the description below, you'll find links and a full list of the materials that are included in the kit and the tools that we used to make this extension panel. If you like this tutorial video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe and click the bell to be notified of new tutorial videos when they become available. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.